Hello. In this video, we are going to complete a proof of the slope formula. The first thing you're going to want to do is click the zoom button and at least get to 100% so that you can read this better. As always, before you start your work, make sure you add your name to the title of the slides. Here, click the share button and share it with me as an editor. When you're done, you're going to submit the website link into Canvas. Make sure you have the right assignment. So, for the proof of the slope formula, we want to show that the slope, which we call m, the variable m, between 2 points, first point is x1, y1, and the second point, x2, y2, is the following equation here. M is equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, which we also know as our rise divided by our run. To prove this formula, we need two things. The first is the definition of slope. And the definition of slope is the result of division between the change in y values and the change in x values. Second thing that we need is a graph containing our 2 points. The first point x1, y1, and the second point x2, y2. So here we have a coordinate plane with some random line going through it. And we're going to call this first x value x1. So this green dot has an x value of x1 and it has a y value of y1. And this second green dot here, it has it has an x value of x2 and it has a y value of y2. So now we have our 2 points on the coordinate plane. And the reason why we're keeping them as x1, y1, x2, y2 is we want this equation to be, we want this formula to be true for any 2 points. So we're going to use variables instead of choosing numbers. So now we're going to use the definition of slope and what we know about length to prove this slope equation. So if we're looking at this picture here, I've added a couple lines to it. We know that the length of this blue line is our value for x1. This length of this red line is our value for x2. And the same thing goes on the y-axis. The length of the orange line would be the value of y1. And the length of the pink line would be the value of y2. So then the change in y values would be the length of the pink line minus the length of the orange line. And when we think about what that is, that would be y2 minus y1. So we would get this distance in between y2 and y1, where my mouse is. And the same goes for the change in x values. We know that the change in the x values would be this distance between the two. So that would be the length of the red line minus the length of the blue line. And we know that is equal to x2 minus x1. Gonna have to do some adjusting here. Okay. So the length of the red line minus the length of the blue line would be equal to x2 minus x1. So it would be this distance in between the two. Well, that tells us everything we need to know, because by our definition, we know slope is the result of division between the change in the y values and the change in the x values. So then division between the change in the y values and change in the x values would be our slope formula. y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And we have a happy face here because the proof is now complete.